Hey friends, this is Mark Suroviec, host of the Workplace Solutions podcast, inviting you to discover the joy of work. All right, we're good. How you doing today, David?
I'm doing well. It's the end of a busy week, but it's my first week back from taking a little time off. But it's been a good week, so Nice to wrap up a Friday with a good conversation.
How's the move going?
It's going well. One, thanks for helping out and helping me move. All things considered, for having a sprained ankle on day one of the move, I appreciate you and the others being able to come out and help me get moved in. All of our stuff is there. We're out of the old place. Now it's just navigating boxes and putting everything in its rightful place once we figure out exactly where that is.
All right, before we started, David was telling me an amazing story about fleas. Well, not amazing for him. It sounds like it's terrible, but it was fun for me to listen. So what happened?
Yeah. So I guess we bought a house that previously had pet owners, and we knew that going in. No big deal. Hardwood floors, thinking there would be no real issue. And then the past couple days, especially this morning, I wake up, start walking around, and I feel something bite me and kind of jump to the side real fast, and didn't really see it at first. And then I look down at my 14-month-old daughter, and she's scratching herself, and something jumps off of her, and same thing with my wife, and we see these little black bugs jumping all over the place, and realize we have a flea problem.
Cool.
So it's just been spent this morning, kind of got up first thing, moving furniture, vacuuming the floors, baseboards, vents. It's kind of a weird situation to say I have a flea problem, but nonetheless, we're getting it taken care of. And overall, we do love the place, so it shouldn't be too hard to remedy.
Well, David's hygiene is fantastic. It is not.
Well, I appreciate it, Mark.
And people have stopped listening. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I am here today with David Lillie. David is an account manager for a software company, husband, father, an MBA grad who also teaches management classes on the side and does a lot of interesting things. So tell us about yourself, David.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks. Thanks for having me. I try not to think too much of myself in general, but all the things you mentioned are correct. Things I'm most proud of, being a dad, being a husband. I've got a 14-month-old daughter at home. My wife and I have been married for right at 5 years this month, actually. And in terms of work, I've done a variety of things. Most of my work experience has been in sales and management to date. So as you mentioned, I'm currently an account manager for a software company. Basically what that means is my job to retain and grow our current customer base. I have to take kind of a deep dive look into our customers and their business, get to know them really well, and then find new ways that our product can kind of help support the goals that they're after. So I've been doing that for a little while, and really I find success when my customers succeed in what they're trying to achieve. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. As you mentioned, I got an MBA. I taught a class or two at Berry, and Berry College, that is, for those who aren't familiar. Yeah, I'm just excited to be here.
Okay, fantastic. All right, David, tell us what today's topic is.
Yeah, so today's topic is life hacks for managers. So we'll get into what that means a little bit more, but excited to kind of have a conversation just around management.
All right, let's go ahead and do an icebreaker. I always get a little, loopy's the wrong word, but I get a little confused because we're recording now, but the episode's going to be released later. So it's a different experience for whoever's listening. But right now, for us, it is the holidays are coming up. And so we'll just lump them all together so that we don't have to say which one is right now. So what is a holiday tradition, family tradition that just warms your soul? What's something that your family does? Not that you wish that every family did, but something that just really is meaningful to you.
And Christmas morning, I think a lot of people could say there's some special traditions surrounding that. For us, the things that warm our soul also warm our bellies. And we typically start a morning where we wake up, we make a huge breakfast. We have some typical things that we have every single year. We'll make eggs, we'll make sausage balls, we'll make sometimes small quiches, fruit, just a variety of things. And we have pretty much the same meal every single year on Christmas morning. We grab all of our food, we take plates, we sit around the tree eating our breakfast. And then forever, my mother is one who likes to hand out the gifts, and it becomes a full-on production. So gift opening is not something that we do in 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes it can take 2 or 3 hours.
Really?
There is an order to which the gifts are to be opened for maximum effect. Think of like a story timeline.
Oh, man.
She's got it planned out to a T. So we really try to let her divvy out the gifts, and it's somewhat awkward because at different times, if it's your turn to open a gift, everyone else is staring at you and you have to open it and get your reaction and all of that. But yeah, Christmas morning, it's just a big deal for our family. So
how do the introverts in the family handle that?
What introverts in our family? No, I'm just kidding. That is something, my wife is an introvert, and for her it was a bit overwhelming the first time we did it. My parents like to tell the story. I guess my very first Christmas, something similar happened when I was just a baby, brand new, and we had to take a nap halfway through opening presents on Christmas morning.
Aw, that's precious.
Yeah.
That's precious. All right, for me, I'm going to go with one of my favorite traditions is my grandmother's rolls. So she would make her own yeast rolls from a recipe that she carries in her head. It's not written down anywhere. She doesn't measure anything. She just kind of goes, a little of this, a little of this. Yeah. And at the time of this recording, she is 100. Wow. And she still makes the rolls and makes at least 3 pies, maybe 4. It doesn't matter who is there. Every grandchild gets their own special pie because we all like different things. And it's just, how at Workplace Solutions, we love food.
Of course.
And we love food as an experience. So it's just something that I absolutely love, and I know I'm going to miss when she's gone because no one in my family has been able to replicate that recipe as much as we've tried. We've come close. My wife has come close. My mom has come close, but she's just a wizard in the kitchen, and just it's hard to follow her as she's making things. So,
that's awesome.
But she's spry. She'll say when she was younger, like 85, 90, she's like, Mark, that's not old. Do you think that's old? And she would point to the people that were on TV that were 100 or 105. She's like, that's old. And now that she's 100, she's like, yeah, I guess I'm getting old, but there's still people that are 110. I'm like, yes, Grandma, there's still people that are 110.
I love that.
All right. Well, I could talk about the holidays all day long, but that's not why we're here today. We're going to do some life hacks for managers. So, David, let's start off with this. In a massive number of articles, books, podcasts, you see this theme that leadership is good, management bad. What's misleading or incomplete with this sentiment? Unless you believe that, and then we'll have a different conversation than I thought we would.
No, it's actually a great question. I don't believe that sentiment, personally, at least not in my own experience and my own study on the topic. I think the challenge when we hear this idea that leadership is good, management is bad, is really, so it's a contextual thing, right? When you think about, really let's focus on the management is bad piece. When you hear what people are talking about, they're typically referring to someone who's micromanaging or someone who's solely focused on just getting results and ignoring the person that's actually doing the work on the other side. Maybe they're not giving that individual the support they need. And they kind of pit this against the idea of leadership, which is always vision casting, leading other people and taking them to a great destination. And it's kind of portrayed as leadership's the antonym of management. Really, it's, in my understanding, that's kind of a false dichotomy. They're not at odds with each other. They go hand in hand. So really, it comes down to the definition of things. When I think about leadership really has to do with influence and how your influence with others and how are you using that. Management, related, but also different, is the idea of how you get work done through other people. And so when you put those two things together, you realize that they both have to go hand in hand, right? So management is classically thought of as a variety of different activities, but typically fall into 4 buckets. One of them is leading people using that influence. But the others are planning. So thinking futuristically, setting goals, thinking about strategy. You're looking at organizing, which is taking your resources, building structure, aligning people and processes in the right place, and controlling, measuring results, making corrections, making sure that you are tracking in the direction that you're wanting to go. All of those things come together to bring up this idea of management. In a workplace context where we see management most common, leadership is critically important as part of the management equation, but they are not at odds with one another. They actually go hand in hand.
Awesome. I appreciate that sentiment, because the idea that working on your processes or systems or improving the efficiency is, as you said, not mutually exclusive. Those are good things. I think it was, what's the author of Atomic Habits? James... We'll look up his name.
That's a great question. I probably need to read that, and I'll tell you.
Yes, it's a fantastic book, but he says something to the effect of that you don't rise up to meet your goals. You lower yourself down to the level of your systems and processes. And there's a massive amount of truth in that. Yes, sometimes there is a leadership vacuum or there is a lack of vision, but a lot of times it's a lack of efficient systems that work and make sense to people, that it isn't a bureaucracy or those kind of things. So I appreciate seeing that, because as I spend more and more time on LinkedIn, I see all of these books and articles and posts like leaders are great, managers are terrible. And it's just, it breaks my heart.
There's quite a bit of content out there that's catchy.
Yeah.
I mean, that the idea of pitting those two things against one another does kind of resonate with people, but that's where, in my experience, it's a misunderstanding of the two. I think, bad leaders are probably going to be bad managers. Good leaders that are investing in personal development and growing themselves are often also trying to grow in other managerial capabilities if they are leading people towards a particular result. Not always, but in a certain line of thinking, typically you're growing either in both, or you're going down in both in a lot of ways. And so I think they're closely related, but it's important to understand the distinctions and also not get so myopic or only focused on leadership, but understanding the other aspects of your management. And that is, what are the other things I need to do to get the best results out of the people I lead?
Awesome. All right, we entitled this episode Life Hacks for Managers. And I told David before we started, I don't expect him in 30 minutes or less to give us all the secrets of management right now. I think I would charge a lot more for the podcast if we did, which is currently free. So as we think about that, what are some secrets to being a good manager? And I put secrets in quotes. Just what are some things that are important to being a good manager?
It's kind of a tough thing, because I don't really want to label them as hacks. When I think of a hack, I think of something that's a shortcut, something that gets you to a destination quicker than maybe the traditional way. And with management, I just don't think that that's a good mindset to get into. You're not going to become a great manager overnight. And I don't think that the behaviors that I'm going to recommend are actually fall in that category of hacks, probably more like habits. The things that you can kind of consistently do and spend some time growing in, that you're not going to get right from the start, but you definitely need to invest in. So a few of those habits, maybe.
I'm okay with that. I'm learning too, buddy.
Well, okay, so we'll start with the first one. I think it starts with understanding your role. This goes back to the previous kind of conversation piece. Just what is management, right? When you become a manager and you move into a managerial role, you have to think differently about what you're there for. You're there to get the most out of the people that you're responsible for, to produce the best results, and their results are what you're accountable to, more than your own results. And that's a hard shift for a lot of people. So most first-time managers come from a background of being a strong individual performer. If you're in sales, You do a good job for 2-3 years, you're probably going to become a sales manager at some point, because they want you to take your behaviors and pass them on to other people to replicate those results.
Michael Scott on The Office.
Exactly.
Excellent salesman.
Not so great manager.
Not so great manager.
Right. And you see that same thing happening. I love The Office. I love that reference. We can play on that. So Michael Scott, when we see him in an office, we see him around a variety of other cast characters that he's responsible for being in charge of and managing their work. We know, for those who've watched it and those who haven't, it's very simple. He's not the best manager. The best work doesn't get done when he's leading his people.
But he has a world's best boss mug that he bought for himself.
Yes. But when you look at Michael Scott as a salesperson, well, there's a couple episodes he goes out on some sales calls. He's awesome. He's fantastic. He closes the deals that others can't close. He really is a strong individual performer. That's the entry point for a lot of managers. So going back to understanding your role, you have to make a mindset shift that says, my job is not to get results. It's to get results through other people. When you make that shift, you then focus on, how am I behaving in such a way that's going to help these other people do their job the best? My focus is no longer on what am I achieving and reporting up the chain, but what am I doing to help those underneath me perform their best? And that's really the role of a manager, to multiply the efforts of others.
As I'm hearing you describe that, if you just use those words and said that was the definition for servant leadership, folks would go, oh yeah, that sounds right, which is very insightful. I think just hearing what good management looks like is also good sacrificial leadership, and they go hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. That's number one. Let's think of a couple others. So the next two are very closely related. So second tip, habit, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to say stay involved. And here's what I mean by that. A lot of managers, especially first timers, but some maybe who are a little bit more introverted, or others who maybe just have very strong relationships with people, have a hard time leaning into the work aspect of the people they're leading and making sure that they're involved in their direct's everyday work. A lot of times it comes from a fear, right? I want to be liked. So if I come in and I tell others how to do their work, I might not be liked. Sometimes it's a fear of being a micromanager. I've heard such bad things about that I don't want to be that. So I've got competent people. I'm going to let them run with it, and I'm just going to check in whenever they need me, kind of deal. What happens is you become an absentee manager. You take a step back. You let people do their own work on their own. And when you start to become disconnected and less involved, really the research shows that absentee managers actually are less effective than those who are micromanagers. Because your responsibility as a manager is to get the work out of other people. If you start to back off to preserve a relationship solely, hey, you're probably not going to get the best results. Your job's to be involved. Now, here's how you counter that. It's the next point, right? So if one is stay involved, the second piece is getting others involved, and that's your direct reports. So when you are managing other people, think of it this way. If you want to avoid being a micromanager, bring them into the conversation. Ask, okay, we're doing goal setting. What should our goals be? Does this seem reasonable? Does this seem outlandish? What would you measure? What do you think we can measure best? Something along those lines. If you're changing a process, right? Ask for someone's input on what the process should be. If you're changing the control measures, what people are being rated on at the end of the year or mid-year, ask for that input. Ultimately, the decision stays with you as a manager. You don't have to do what they say. But just the process of bringing somebody into that conversation, getting some input on the way work should be done, invites them to speak into the process and generally opens people up to accepting your decision, whatever it is. So by getting others involved and you stay involved, you're actually making that relationship more effective at actually getting the results it's designed to do.
And what I'm interpreting as you say that is that the manager is not just going through the motions of listening, but they're actually listening because often the direct report is the boots on the ground and is closer to the details of the tasks that are going on. And they're much easier. It's easier for them to say, yeah, we can't do that in 2 weeks. So that's going to take a month, or yeah, we can do that, but that's going to blow up something over in shipping, or that kind of idea.
Yeah. And I think that helps provide a couple things for you as the manager. It gives you that insight to know what some of those roadblocks are. Maybe you do hear, I think that's impossible. And you go, what would it take to speed that up 5%, 10%? Maybe it's it doesn't matter what you throw at it. It's not going to get any faster. Maybe it's, well, I need extra budget. Maybe it's, I need an extra 5 hours to work on it. Who knows? But it invites you into that conversation to know how you can help. That person can ask for help, and the results can improve in the end by having a conversation. And that's why being involved and getting others involved is far better than kind of letting other people run the ship on their own.
The way you're describing this, these sound very similar to facilitation skills of being curious and seeking understanding. Those skills of asking good questions, of active listening, of getting people to think and ponder and look at things from different lenses is really important. What would it take to get there? I thought that was a fantastic question.
Yeah.
You mentioned being connected. Knowing that every job is different, every work culture is different, what general boundaries would you put on that? Is that once a week? Is that every day? Is that depends on whether you're remote or in person or hybrid? And just give folks at least some things to consider.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, the nature of the work determines what being involved looks like on a regular basis. And the size of your team matters, the size of your area of responsibility. There's a number of things. So what I try to do in these conversations is to think, let's not set any one-size-fits-all rules. The point is to say, what can you do? So I'm kind of skipping ahead to a different part of the conversation.
I'm sorry. If you want to come back to that later, we can.
No, I'm okay tackling it now.
Okay.
But I think at the very minimum, for most people, it's some form of weekly check-in, one-on-one. The most important thing that you can give your direct reports is your time. When you give them that time, a few things happen, right? It gives them the opportunity to share what's important to them. It helps build a relationship, but it also gives them the opportunity to receive coaching from you, feedback on their performance, how they can improve. People want to please their boss. They want to do good work. And for most people, that means a promotion's coming. That means pay is going to increase. That means they're going to win favor with their boss. So they want to have that connection point and know how they can improve so that they can reap the benefits of that. And that all starts with having time with your boss, so you understand expectations and you can relay what's important. So,
yeah, when I hear folks say I haven't seen my manager in a month and seen either on Zoom or in person, and we meet once a quarter, I'm just like, oh, I cringe. I don't know how that would even work.
Well, I even question if you have a manager at that point. What are they managing if not you?
Some HR paperwork.
Well, and that goes back to the understanding your role piece, right? A manager, you do have to understand your people day to day and work to make sure they're getting the best results. So at minimum, I would recommend a once a week conversation. It doesn't have to be long, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. But remember that is time you're giving to that direct report that is valuable to them, that enables them to do their best work. And when they do their best work, you look good. So I strongly recommend having at least something like that. If you're a hybrid, great. You can do it virtually. You can do it in the office. It's okay to have Slack updates periodically or check in with little direct messages throughout the week. But definitely carving out some dedicated time, maybe once a week to chat with your direct reports.
If people aren't getting their time from that manager, is there a way for a direct report to ask for that appropriately that won't bite them in the rear? Or, well, it depends on what your manager's like. But
well, I mean, I think it's, I think as you can't always guarantee what your manager is going to be, but you can demonstrate strong managerial behaviors in the role that you're in, regardless of if you're responsible for others now. And if you want to be responsible for the work of others, doing a great job with your own work is a great place to start. And so I think sometimes the case can be made is going to your manager, just saying, hey, I want to do my best work. I want to hit my goals. I want to perform. And in order to do that, I need to get a few things from you. Can we set up a time, 20 minutes, once a week, where I can ask you questions and I can get feedback on how I'm doing and we can check in on progress? If you as a direct report set that up and say, I'm happy to send you the calendar invite, the agenda, and all of those things, and I want to perform my best for your sake, I have a hard time thinking many good managers are going to say no to that.
Love it. I'm going to put that one in the hack category. That sounds like a hack.
Okay, good. Sounds great.
We got one. No, I do appreciate how you clarified that leading people is not easy, and it's a lot of daily grind, kind of repetitive behaviors that build that trust up over time.
Yeah.
What did you have next, or did you want me to ask a new question?
If we talk about that kind of regular weekly time as something that managers, I think, maybe should start doing. If they're not already doing that, that's kind of first place to start is making sure you're getting that face time with your direct reports. Probably makes sense to then pivot to what are some of the behaviors, or at least one of the behaviors that I think managers probably could stop doing that maybe rub people the wrong way or aren't terribly productive. And so on the same vein, one of the things that I would say and recommend with that is to stop asking the question, where does this stand? Or asking for a status update on things. Here's why. Because in today's world, with modern technology, in most organizations that we work with, and even if not, you can put this on a post-it on the wall, refrigerator, whatever. But if asking solely for a status update, where does this stand? Whether it's a deal, a project, a task, there's no real benefit there other than you as the manager kind of getting a report out on where things are sitting or where they at. You're not getting information on what's stalling them. You're not getting information on what could drive things forward. Asking for regular status updates is just a report out that can be on any sort of digital tool where you can update that status. It's done. What you should do instead, if you want those kinds of questions, and what I really think people are trying to get at when they ask for status updates is, why is this stalled? What can we do to move this forward? So I think managers who go in and create time, maybe they're starting their week off with kind of a team-wide meeting to see where things sit. Don't ask status updates. Ask for things like, what do you need help with? You know, what's the next step? And what do you need to get there by X date? Right? What resources or assistance maybe are going to make you perform 10% better than you are today? Things like that are going to drive progress. So outside of your one-on-ones, ask those kinds of questions rather than just trying to state things that are the obvious. If you're just asking for status updates all the time, it does sound like micromanaging. Stop.
And the other thing about that is if you have a good software system or even a board on the wall that shows the status of things, it's a lot of work to update and maintain those systems.
Exactly.
And as a manager, if your direct report is doing all of that work to update the system and you're ignoring it and just saying, well, just tell me what's going on. Well, then why did I spend 2 hours writing this report or updating this dashboard?
Yeah.
So it just seems like both a waste of time and I almost want to use the word like disrespect to the employee.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great point you bring up. So just either way, decide who's going to do it. If the direct reports are going to update the status on their projects, tasks, deals that are in the pipeline or in works, great. Let them do it and let that serve as your update. If you as the manager are going to get that information from them and then update it for other people to see, great. But call that out and set that as a separate meeting than your one-on-one and get that information. But either way, doing it twice is a bit redundant.
Let's tell some stories. So tell us a story of a manager that nailed it, either from your own experience or one of the classes you teach or the research that you've done. So
I'm going to take a personal experience here. And
we are okay with thanking people by name if they would not be embarrassed. Well, they might be embarrassed. We're okay with thanking people by name.
Well, I'm gonna thank him by name anyway, because this individual, his name is DuPre Bingham. Bingham. He was my first boss When I was 15 years old, I started working at a Chick-fil-A restaurant in Charlotte, North Carolina. And DuPre was the owner operator. And man, there's so many good things I can say. Really set the foundation for a lot of who I am today and a lot of what I've come to learn. But when I think about him nailing it and what that looked like. So, I started at 15. A month later, I turned 16. At 16 years old, I was given regular check-ins with the head of the organization, DuPre. He would pull me aside. We'd sit in a booth right across from the counter, and he would check in with me. And how are things going? Great. What have you learned? Walk with me. And we would stand up, and he would take me, and he says, stand right here. What do you see? And he would teach me to see the restaurant through his eyes, teach me to see the customer interactions, teach me to see the trash that I needed to pick up. And then he would tell me to go clean the parking lot. And then we would come back in. And
was he doing this with a group of people?
No.
Or he would just take turns taking different employees out and showing them? Oh,
yeah, that's
amazing.
Yeah, that's what was so incredible is I got that valuable one-on-one time with my boss where I got to hear how I was doing and what else he wanted me to learn. And he coached me along the way. And it started with things like trash and tables. And then it started moving into, customer service and getting chicken out on time because that's what we were serving. And then it moved into managing finances and labor costs. And I got to look at our P&Ls, our profit and loss statements, and understand how the business worked, how we were making money, and what were the drivers that actually grew the business. And he taught that to me at 16, 17 years old. On top of that, he was asking for my feedback because I was the one working in the restaurant every single day. As I was kind of working each shift, I would learn new things, and he was asking for my feedback and what patterns I was noticing. And some of that information, he would then coach me on, here's how you can change. And some of that information he would take and he would go, maybe we as an organization need to make a change. So all of that, I saw him kind of taking that face time, growing the people around him, managing the work that was done, and our customer service scores increased, our sales increased. He ultimately got a second restaurant because of it, and I learned a lot in the process. And so I just think it was just a great example of someone who did that really well, and the fact that it was my first job and I was 16 years old, and he gave me the utmost respect, and I really appreciated that. So, DuPre, thank you.
Love that. Love that. Thank you, David. We're going to wrap up part 1 of this episode. So I would like to thank David for appearing on part 1. We're going to pause. Life is way too short for work to suck. So if you want help to build your team, train your team, or manage your team, we're here. Come see us at workplaysolutions.com. Thanks for listening to the podcast. So just because you don't need to only blah, blah, blah.
That's okay.